Welcome to American Dreams, Keys to Success, with your host, Alan Olson.
Welcome back. We're here today with Dr. Ann Blackburn. She is the founder of the Executive Advisory Forum and is the chapter chair for the Women's President Organization right here in Silicon Valley. So welcome to today's show, Ann.
Thank you.
So, Ann, give me some background. You have a PhD in organizational behavior or leadership?
Right. It's an EDD, which is the education version of a PhD in organizational leadership from University of San Francisco.
And so when did you start your, I guess you came out of your degree, getting the doctor, was it sometime after being in the workforce or?
Yes, it was about 26 years after a career in commercial real estate. So started it in about 2001. And what precipitated that was I was working for a fairly large organization that had recently gone through a merger. So we had some culture clashes. Obviously very smart people, very high profile industry. And yet there was something that just wasn't quite right. So I started off with taking some change management classes to try to figure out what was going on. And then just, kind of got lured in and started taking more and more. And before I knew it, it was, do you want to get a master's in this particular field? And I said, well, why don't I just take it one step further and push myself and do something scary and go for the doctorate?
Okay, so I got a question for you.
Yeah.
Which is better, organic growth or growth through mergers and acquisitions?
Well, I think mergers and acquisitions is a faster way to get there. Organic growth, you have the opportunity to have a more sustained approach and nurture people as you go. But if you want to grow fast, that's probably not the best way to do it.
Uh-huh. It seems like there must be a lot of challenges whenever you're bringing two organizations together.
You do. Who's in charge? I mean, we've seen it with the military, with, when we're merging bases. Who's actually going to be in charge? Is it going to be the Air Force person or the Army person? So there's a lot of confusion that goes on, not to mention the different styles that people have in terms of leadership.
I had a friend who just went through a merger on a company, and they were having some difficulty. So he said, well, the way we're going to solve this, we're going to get 7 more companies. And we're going to acquire them at the same time. And we're going to make such a mess that nobody knows how to control their systems anymore. And we're going to make a new system.
I think that would be chaos theory.
Well, they did it. And I think it took a couple of years to unwind it. But it's interesting. So let's go back. Executive Advisory Forum.
Right.
What does this group do?
It is a think tank for CEOs and business owners that come together once a month, all from a variety of industries, no competing industries within the same chapter. And it essentially gets them above the fray of the day-to-day operational mode, gets them out of the weeds to think strategically about their business and to share with another group of people that only have their best interest in mind to help them through growth issues, personnel issues, sometimes calamity aversion issues, but to help them think beyond what's going to happen the next day, to start thinking 6 months, 12 months, 3 years. We talk about exit strategies. We talk about mergers, acquisitions, growth, personnel. Right now, one of the hot buttons happens to be this whole healthcare situation. And as employers, what does this mean for them? If A, B, or C happens, exactly how do they deal with that? Because their business is widget making or it's a service provider or something. And all these regulations, a lot of small businesses are very confused about what do they do. So they've essentially been lying rather low and saying, we're kind of waiting for tomorrow to happen, and then we'll try to figure it out. But those are the kind of things that we discuss.
I imagine confidentiality is a big part of it.
It's huge. Yeah. It's huge. And every member signs a confidentiality agreement at the beginning of every meeting because we often have an outside person there who is considered a candidate who is thinking about joining the group, and we want to make sure that everybody knows that when you walk out of the room, you're to keep things quiet because we do share financials. I mean, that's one of the things about business is if you're not making money, if you're not looking at the financials, then it's a hobby. So, you need to pay attention to that and to have other people scrutinizing what your financials are, your past, current, and future numbers. There's a lot of illumination that occurs when somebody else is looking at this.
Yeah, it's interesting. People start businesses for different reasons, and from time to time in my day job, I'm a CPA. I'll see all walks of life. I had a guy come into me one time. He was a researcher, and he said, "I'm going to go start a company." And so he says, he brought to me his 5-year business plan, and every year he showed a loss. And of course, he was research, right? So they're continually being fun. And I said, I said, when do you plan on making a profit? He said to me with a straight face, goes, I knew there was a reason I was coming to talk to you.
Oh my gosh.
So,
oh my gosh.
anyways, the CEO think tank. What are some of the big issues facing the CEOs today?
Hiring talent, I think, is going to become it's becoming more and more of a critical issue. Where do you find the skilled talent with the competition? You've got people no longer are going into jobs where they're thinking like the old Chevron model, where I'm going to be there for 30 years. They're thinking I might be here for a couple, and then resume building, particularly in the technology industry. There's a lot of, I'm going to stay here until I build my resume and then I'm going to move somewhere else.
I'm visiting here today with Dr. Ann Blackburn. She's the founder of the Executive Advisory Forum. We'll be right back after these messages.
Protecting your family's health and welfare is a sacred trust. At Greenstein Rogoff Olson Company, we know that sound financial planning will protect them now and in the future. We're certified public accountants with tax services for the highly successful. For your business and your family, call GrowCo.
Greenstein Rogoff Olson Company will help you manage your financial affairs so you can focus on what's really important in life.
GrowCo, helping you along the way.
Apple pie, baseball, and now here's All-American Alan Olson.
Welcome back. I'm visiting here today with Dr. Ann Blackburn of the Executive Advisory Forum. And before the break, we're talking about, getting the forum up and running. But I understand that recently you gave the commencement speech for JFK University.
I gave it to the School of Sports Psychology, which was a fascinating program. It was the master's students who had completed a course, and truthfully, right now there's a huge marriage between sports psychology and the business of business in the goal setting and the continuous training and the continuous improvement, and then having a coach, somebody that's going to push you beyond maybe what you would do on your own. Sports
psychology reminds me when I was in high school. I was on the wrestling team, and my psychology is if I wore the same pair of socks, I'd always win. Yeah. Does it work?
Were they red?
Yeah. No, unfortunately, they're just white and they never wash. So,
well, there are certain rituals that people have with habits and stuff. I mean, you can see they roll their shoulders, or they might look over a shoulder, or they have something where they shake themselves just to kind of get themselves centered. But there is very much a focus, and there's the goal setting in mind, and there's the applicability of they're not just going to wake up and all of a sudden be in the winner's circle. It takes consistent, sustained training, muscle memory, which is brain memory, as well as physical muscles.
That's so true. In life, there's different people that, they take different perspectives. Some people will float through life from day to day. I got this on my plate today, and then tomorrow I have something else. And other people go through life very deliberate.
Yeah.
And I think that you tie that into sports psychology and saying people that are in sports, they want to win. Acclimating that down to the business world, is that something that can be learned, or is it something that people have a natural ability to think about their goal settings? And
I think people can get better at goal setting. I think it's a practice that has to be developed. Some people, it's going to be easier for them than others. Just as sales might be really easy for some person and really hard for another person, it's discovering what your aptitude is and then building on that, because it's like Marcus Buckingham says in his book, discover your strengths and then build from those. Don't always work from the weakness. And I think that in the goal-setting arena, it serves several purposes. One, it puts it in writing, and so it really much makes you put the pedal to the metal. And then the beauty of having either a coach or a board or an advisory group that you can share stuff with, which is they help you get there, and you're never quite sure how that's going to happen. Is it going to be them helping hold you accountable? Are they going to have heard what your goal was and say, hey, I saw an opportunity for you. Let me make an introduction. You just never know how it's going to manifest itself. But if you don't think about it and you don't write it down, then you don't have that additional help and accountability. Plus, you can't go back over the years and see where you've been and say, I set this goal 5 years ago, and man, I blew by it.
Accountability seems to be a big part of business.
Mm-hmm.
And, when you're establishing accountability in an organization, who has the primary role to help with that?
Well, I think the leader, and whether they're a division leader or the president of the company or the sales leader, whoever the designated person is for a specific area of accountability has to be held responsible. And I think that's, again, where goal setting and annual reviews come in, and I think that, quite frankly, should be more often than annually. And the person that is being reviewed should also be responsible for setting those goals. And they'll often set them higher than perhaps their supervisor would. But I think that if you can't measure it, how do you know you got there?
That's good. There's good counsel there. And I think that it makes a difference in organizations when they put things accountable.
Absolutely. And I think for other people to know what other people's goals are and to have almost like that thermometer where are we reaching there, are we getting there, is a demonstrable measurement tool.
So when you're working with organizations, do you have annual retreats with them, or what? How do you get everyone on
we have monthly meetings.
Monthly, okay.
And I've got my WPO, my Women Presidents Group, is fairly seasoned. We've been together now for 9 years. There's 18 members, and we've actually been full. So we've had very little turnover. That group knows each other very well. We have a 3-day annual retreat where we expose the annual goals, both personal and professional. We discuss how we're going to get there and what's going to happen in the next 3 months to get us there. And then at the 3-month mark, which would actually be March or April, people have to verify this is where I am, or this was the hiccup that I experienced, and therefore I'm taking a different tack.
I'm visiting here today with Dr. Ann Blackburn of the Executive Advisory Forum. We'll be right back after these messages.
Nothing's more important than spending time with your family.
At Greenstone Rogoff Olson Company, we're trusted advisors to the highly successful. Our goal is to help you find the right strategy to protect your wealth for yourself and those you love.
Kids! Why do I feel like I've just had an audit? As trusted advisors to the highly successful, we'll make sure that you don't lose your shirt.
Roco helping you along the way.
Apple pie, baseball, and now here's All-American Alan Olson.
Welcome back. I'm here today visiting with Dr. Ann Blackburn. She's the founder of the Executive Advisory Forum. And before the break, we're talking about performance management. I want to come back to this topic because I feel that it's paramount in any organization as to whether or not they succeed or fail, how well they're doing in this area. So when we go back and look at performance management, you take an organization of 2 versus an organization of 100.
Right.
What determines unifying groups there?
I think it's if the expectations are very explicit and clear and everybody acknowledges that what they are from the very get-go, and that's from how they're going to communicate to how they're going to perform to how much time they're going to spend on the job to how they're going to treat others.
You know, when you put 100 people together, you get 100 ideas and value systems. How do you move them all towards? There's a book. I don't know the guy's name, but get everyone rowing in the same direction.
Yeah, it's probably Jim Collins.
Okay.
And the right people on the bus and
good to great. And so how do you draw that out?
What if you inherit the 100, or if you're trying to grow to 100?
Let's say you put 100 people in an organization. You merge 2 companies together.
Right.
And now we want to unify this group.
Well, I think first there's some pre-work that has to be done before you merge the 2 companies together. And there has to be a clearly defined set of leadership goals, or where the company, first of all, why are they merging? Are they really merging, or is there somebody acquiring another company, to make sure that both sides understand that? Because often what happens is a company they think they're being merged, but they're actually being acquired. And so they're going to have to fall in line with the bigger culture.
Which is better?
Which is better?
Acquisition or merger?
I always think that there's going to be somebody that's going to be the stronger side. I think it's just kind of inevitable. I mean, it's highly unusual. It could happen, but it's highly unusual. And you're going to have one person that's going to step up, and they may say they're going to have co-presidents of certain banks that we know about, but it turns out they're not really. You
know, there was Stephen Covey. He wrote on 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and he merged his organization with Franklin. Hiram Smith was the CEO, so they called it the Franklin Covey Organization. Right. And Stephen always did this example where he would take a handshake and he would start to move the hand back and forth. And, you know, if a person would resist, pretty soon they'd have to unify. And anyways, then he would show when 2 people are working together, you can move into the same direction. Well, that didn't work to have 2 CEOs there. I guess
Yeah.
your thought?
I agree, and I think, I mentioned it earlier, like in the military, when somebody's calling out the orders from the trenches, you got to have somebody who's given the order, and that's the one that's going to be followed. Otherwise, it's too confusing, and you have chaos.
You get rid of the person you get rid of one of the two.
Well,
two people
you find another strength that they might have that the other person doesn't have, and it could be, like I said, it could be in the sales arena or the marketing arena, because not everybody has those are special people with special genes. And it could be somebody that's really good at organizational, operational things, and the other person is good at marketing and discovering new markets or new products. But I think that's where the discover your strengths comes in, because there's a reason why both of those companies got to a level where they felt a need to partner.
As companies continue to grow and scale, strategic initiatives, who has responsibilities for helping to get those in line?
I think it's a combination of research, and ultimately, if it's a big enough company, it's the board, which has to kind of set the direction, and they're responsible to their shareholders. It's the CEO, the COO, and the executive team that's responsible for carrying those out. However, they are responsible for bringing and illuminating the board to opportunities that they see on the forefront, too, because they are the ones that are in the trenches, are seeing what the competition is doing, are aware of maybe new opportunities that we don't see, whether it's demographically or culturally or internationally, and then also to identify what some of the hurdles might be, some of the resource allocations that might be necessary to get them there.
How do you find a good employee?
Oh, boy, that's a very good question. And
are they found or are they developed?
I think, first of all, I really adhere to the you have both attitude and aptitude. And I think a lot of people are very smart these days, and certainly the young people, they've had more opportunities for a wealth of knowledge and education than maybe some others. So they're very smart. But if they don't have the attitude, then it really doesn't matter.
Yeah, you can be smart without the common sense, I guess, of moving together. From what you see in the world today, and also with your CEO forums, what are some of the main issues that they face? The challenges of the companies?
Well, the companies that I mostly work with are in the area size of 2 to 50 million. So there's a lot, and a lot of them started their companies. They didn't acquire them; they're not bigger companies. So the finance arena has been particularly stressful. The inability to borrow money, cash flows have suffered, particularly in the service industries, and then keeping people and having to lay them off. And when they're family-run companies and they've got 50 or fewer employees, they know those families' lives, and so when they've had to lay them off, it's particularly painful. I think the HR rules and regulations are becoming particularly stressful. A lot of people have gone to the 1099 employees, and many people don't understand what that means in terms of the legal implications and what the requirements are. So, there's some of these regulatory issues that small businesses, they're in widget making or building or technology, and then all these other things that come with owning a business are, quite frankly, out of their area of expertise.
Mm-hmm. So when you build companies, essentially you're building teams, diversifying the talent,
right,
and get everyone to grow in the same direction there.
Right, and I think one of the more difficult things is like not always hiring people that look and sound just like you. And I actually heard Condoleezza Rice say this in a commencement speech, and she said, it's great to have good ideas and to be talking to people that are like-minded, but when you find yourself in that situation repeatedly, find some new friends. I thought that was wonderful.
I think that's good, and I love her. So, Ann, if somebody wants to join the Executive Advisory Forum, how do they do that?
They can contact us at executiveadvisoryforum.com. Happy to take their call at 925-708-4560. They will get a hold of me directly. I can walk them through the process, tell them how we operate. Typically, we meet once a month for 3.5 hours, and we really specifically set that time because we thought 8 hours was too long for a business owner to be away, and we do it at the end of the day from 2 to 5:30 so they can get to the office and get their work done, and then they can come and shed the day-to-day operations and think at a higher level.
Typically, how big's the group there?
Anywhere from 10 to 15.
10 to 15.
And then we have outside featured speakers come in once a month after the confidential part, which shed light on things that perhaps they wouldn't otherwise have access to.
So, Executive Advisory Forum, and then you meet where? Is it?
We meet at sponsorship locations.
Okay.
We have a number of sponsors. Merrill Lynch is one of our sponsors. California Bank and Trust, Mechanics Bank, and so we've had the distinct pleasure of having our meetings held at these wonderful conference rooms with these larger businesses who often provide us with talent and then sometimes join us for the featured speaker presentations.
I'm here today with Ann Blackburn, the founder of the Executive Advisory Forum. Ann, thank you for joining today's show.
Thank you.
You're listening to American Dreams with Alan Olson on AM 1220 KDOW.